And live. Oh, Matthew, I'm really happy to have you. Honestly, really happy. The first reason, of course, is because now you are a bestseller author, super famous. And here in UK, your name, is like, oh, Matthew Syed. But for me, the first time I saw you on television, I think it was on BBC, I don't know where, I thought, man, this is Matthew Syed. I saw him playing, for England, and my wife said, "Oh no, come on, he's a journalist. He's not a table tennis player." I say, believe me, he is Matthew. I know who is Matthew Syed. So,
yeah, I mean, it's interesting because obviously table tennis. I was a chopper. I used to play with slice, and I know that you have a very big background in table tennis. But I remember often playing against Italian opponents. I had some great battles with Italians through the years, like Nanesci and Nannoni, Costantini.
Yeah.
I think I played Costantini in the Olympic qualification, 1992, just before the Barcelona Olympics.
Really?
And he was he's a good player. Now, tell me about your background in table tennis, because you maybe I look different to how I used to look, and maybe you do too.
So I was, my top ranking was number 5 in Italy. So it was Nannoni, Costantini, Mondello. Do you remember Mondello? He came out a bit after Manneschi and Nannoni. And so I was there, in that team. But I was not in good relationship with the national team. So I was playing as an independent. I was going to play, my tournaments, but I was out of the national team. That's why we never played. And also, I was not. Costantini was a much better player, and Annoni. But the funny story that I have for you is this one. I went once to practice in Oxenhausen, where Richard Prause was there, Leo Amesic was the coach, Conglingui was there playing. So I was going there to practice, and I was sleeping at Richard Prause flat. Okay, and he came back once from a tournament, an international tournament, and I say, Richie, how was it? And he say, it didn't go well. And I say, why? I lost against Matthew Syed. And he had the tape of the match, all right? And you have to know that Prause, you remember Prause? He had a left player.
I don't know how many of your audience are interested in table tennis. But Prause was a German. He was like 3 in Germany, 3 or 4 in Germany. Big forehand.
Fantastic serve.
His serve was good. It was a good serve. He wasn't very subtle as a player. His touch wasn't so good, but he had great power. And I played him many, many times. We developed a great friendship and a wonderful sense of humor. And I do remember Oxenhausen. I trained there for a week. This is a German club in the Bundesliga. And Leo Amesic, I remember well. He was a very good coach. I think Serbian, right? Or Croatian?
Croatian. Croatian.
And I trained there a week. I almost signed for Oxenhausen.
Really?
What was the name of the guy? The guy with the goatee beard who ran the team?
Not Gerard. Reinhard. Yeah. Also because there it was, Conlingui, Peter Franz. A lot of players. Then they were turning there. But anyway, I was into the table tennis, and you were a super strong player in that moment. And Prause was very good against defense player. Yeah. So basically, you killed his career, because when he lost against you, the national team said, "All right, let take Timo Bollin and Prause out." Yeah.
There was but I remember. We should move on. But I do remember. I lost to Prause once, and it was in a tournament. I was an unusual defender in that a lot of defenders have very good attack.
Yeah,
but I was a defender who defended a long, long way away from the table, and I would take the ball very near to the floor when I played, and with slice. And if the court wasn't big enough, there were different sizes of court. So the minimum size for a court in international competition was 12 by 6, 12 meters by 6. But in a big competition, they would normally play 14 by 7 because you needed space for the really powerful players. But I remember playing him in a 12 by 6, and I was just running up against the barrier all the time. And he destroyed me in this tournament. I think it may have been the Austrian Open or something. Anyway.
But
Very good memories.
are you still playing, or are you still in touch with, I don't know, Alan Cook, Desmond Douglas, all the English team? Chansey Nua also. Chansey Nua was practicing in Oxenhausen. He taught me, his backspin, no spin serve. It was very smart.
I think he, along with Waldner, he had the best serve of all time in table tennis. Chansey Nua used to win 3-4 points directly on serve.
Stunning.
In each fight. I mean, he's a fantastic server, backhand and forehand. I'm a little bit involved in table tennis. I keep an eye on the big tournaments. You can tune in and watch them on TV, which is great. I'm playing a bit of tennis now to keep fit. I injured the back of my leg last Sunday night.
Oh, right, got it.
I'm having a drink with the guy who beat me this evening to commiserate. But I still love sport. I write about sport for the Times.
Yeah, a lot.
So I still have that love for it.
And Britain, by the way, now has a great team, table tennis team. The Pitchford and I don't remember the name of the other guy. They're very, very strong player. Eduardo is really happy about you because he say, I am currently reading Bounce. I've read the greatest and Black Box thing, absolutely best author I've read of. And I remember I think you were mentioning some table tennis in Bounce. Maybe you were talking about Waldner in Bounce or.
Bounce was my first book, and I start the book, and thank you, Eduardo. That's extremely kind. I start the book with the street I grew up in Reading, which is a town 40 miles west of London. It's a very ordinary town. And there was a street that I lived on. And about 1/3 of this street was in the catchment area of a particular primary school. So a very tiny section of this one street. The primary school was called Aldrington, and it had maybe 15 table tennis champions. Right. And I try to understand what created this hotbed of table tennis success, and then I broaden the analysis in Bounce to look at other areas too. So it was a great, in a funny kind of a way, table tennis was a really good route into thinking about performance and psychology and culture and all these other ingredients that create success.
That's I think it's a very interesting topic. This topic that you touched there about talent. Do you need to be you born with a talent or not? And I remember I've been in Sweden to practice, and I went to Ängby where Mikael Appelgren and Wallner were practicing. And I
was a team member at Ängby for in 1990. I was with Appelgren, Falvey, and Patrick Torshäll.
Oh my goodness, fantastic. I didn't know that. But I was impressed because Ängby, you remember the practice area, it was not like a fancy place. When I went there, I thought, how is it possible these talents are coming out from, I was expecting for an incredible location. So it's very, very interesting, this talent topic. What's the final conclusion on this talent topic? You're born with talent, or it's not really a matter of being born, but it's more about practice?
I think it's. I think the answer is that, particularly in the 1980s and 90s, we tried to understand success almost exclusively through the concept of talent. So you would see somebody doing something well, and you would say, "Wow, they're talented." And then, of course, because you thought they were talented, you would give them a lot of support. And somebody who maybe was less good at that time, you'd say they lack talent, and therefore we're not going to support them. I think the answer is much more multifaceted, that there are many other ingredients that go into success. And it's looking at this bigger picture that enables one to really fine-tune what it takes to help us reach our potential. So for me, talent is one of the ingredients. But the crucial thing is it's what we do with our talents that really creates a success for individuals and organizations.
I like it. Also because it's connected to your new book. By the way, I bought it. Here it is. Dare to be You. Is sounds like advertising, but actually I bought it for my 11 years old son because I thought, it's lacking a bit of, self-confidence, and he compare himself with maybe other children, and some of then maybe they are better, I don't know, in cricket. By the way, you know, Matthew, that cricket do not exist in Italy. We don't have cricket, you know. So when I can't even teach him anything, you know, I can teach you about table tennis, but I can't teach you about cricket. And so I saw your book and I thought, wow, that's interesting. And so I got curious about it. And first question is, well, why did you go into a children book? Because this is, obviously, I can also read it because there are some interesting concepts, but is focused on children. Why did you choose to do that?
I mean, I think my daughter is just turned 8, and she said to me recently, Dad, why has my life been ruined? I was quite surprised by this, and I tried to understand why she had said it, and I realized the reason was because we had been having breakfast with the radio turned on.
Right.
And on the radio, she had heard that children have missed some schooling, they've been out of the usual education system, and people were saying it's ruined their lives, they're never going to catch up the lost ground, it's devastating, the change is something that has really destabilized this generation of young people. And she'd heard these negative messages again and again and again. Now, I think it has been tough for children and for parents. This has been an unprecedented pandemic. But I think the tone is wrong.
Definitely.
I think that we need to understand that young people, when they leave school or university, they're going to be living in a world of change. I mean, ever since the Industrial Revolution, the world has changed faster than it did in previous times. And the digital revolution is accelerating that change. And I think that if we constantly try to insinuate to young people that change is bad, it's disruptive, it's negative, they're never going to catch up, I think this is the wrong message. I think we need to equip young people with adaptability. Yes, it's been tough. It's okay to be anxious. Yes, you've missed out. But you know what? Change is a part of life, and dealing with change is one of the most important skills that you need. So one of the things I wanted to do in this book is to write a book that young people could really begin to make sense of why change happens, how it happens, and what tools they can use to really be successful in that kind of world and positive about that kind of a world.
How different is, Matthew, writing a book for, let's say, the business world, or, you know, like for adults and not novels? I don't know how you say in English this, but let's say business books. I don't know, non-novel book. And how much is different to write for children? By the way, the graphics are fantastic. I really love the design, the general, the fonts. I mean, the ideas is really, really good. I don't know who did it, but congrats. So what are the main difference?
I think the key thing, so obviously fiction and non-fiction are very
Fiction and
different.
non-fiction.
Yeah, I mean, not non-fiction is what I've always done. So I'm comfortable doing that for adults. The tough thing with children, I think, is to make the messages accessible. So that means really good stories, be funny, be conversational. And the most important thing, I think, is don't patronize. Don't patronize. Don't condescend. Don't pretend that they can't understand complex issues. I think talk to them and then bring them with you. And, you know, it's a tougher challenge with young people for me. But I did a book in 2018, which is really a young person's version of Bounce.
Right.
This book is really a young person's version of Rebel Ideas, and the feedback has been fantastic. And I'm really pleased about it. I've really enjoyed writing for young people.
How was coming out with the book in this period? Because I came out with the book on January, and I remember I was touring to promote the book, and I thought, wow, this is going to be great, you know, I will sell so many copies. And then lockdown started and everything, the bookstore closed, and I thought, that's not going to be good. So how do you adapt to this situation as an author?
Oh, difficult. I mean, it has been tough because a lot of when my paperback of Rebel Ideas came out the first week of lockdown. So we had promotions in the bookshops, and we had a whole range of other things, and we had to pull them back. We'll do a relaunch early next year. I think you just, as you know, you have to be a bit more creative about how you get the message out there and so on. But I think for what it's worth, I think that books will always stay with us. That people are, I think is a massive community of people who are interested in ideas, interested in how they can navigate the world in an effective way. There's a lot of wonderful science out there. There's a lot of great stories that can bring that science to life. So I think the genre of nonfiction writing is going to stay with us. And actually, I think one of the things we've learned in this period is how much we still have to learn. I mean, one of the things about what we call natural science, so the science of objects, if you like, physical phenomena. Obviously, we've made a lot of progress, and people talk about a theory of everything that can unify relativity and quantum theory. In social science, understanding human beings, how we behave, how we interact, how societies evolve, how you create successful cultures, we're learning, and there's a huge amount, I think, of great interest in that space.
What was the impact of your table tennis life for your professional life? I was curious about it because for me, for instance, it was very important. I mean, I learned a lot, Obviously, I sacrificed a lot to try to get a better player, and I didn't even reach your level. So it's hard. It's hard to become a good player in any sport, but it gave me a lot of good lessons. What were the lessons for you, and do you still find it maybe when you write a book, you still have that focus that you need to have in the important points? I mean, is it something there, or it's just gone?
No, well, no. I mean, it's a big part of who I am. I obviously learned many lessons because you have to be resilient in sport. You have to be honest with yourself if you have weaknesses, because otherwise an opponent will exploit them. So you have to work on your weaknesses. There's an objectivity in sport, which I think is a great thing for learning quickly about yourself and personal development. The thing that I look back on with most amazement is I was into this for such a long time. I played until 33. I was a professional. That was my life. And I would work so hard for 6 months to get, up 2 positions in the world ranking. And now I look at those ranking lists, and at the time I'd say, yes, I've moved from 26 in the world to 24. Or I've moved above Christopher 2. Oh, this is great. And now I think, my goodness, I should have started writing earlier. I do laugh about that sometimes.
What was your best ranking?
My best ranking, I think, was 23. So it was an interesting period, because China, as now, very dominant and very good. And I was in the world ranking in 20s for quite a long time, but I couldn't break into the top 20, and I needed a better attack and a better service. And I never quite made that transition.
Got it. But if you think now, what are what's your daily routine when you write a book? Because you write a lot of books, so you are very prolific as a book author. So I was curious to understand, how do you organize yourself? If you have any kind of daily habit when you write that is very, applicable to other people, and also your sources, because you always have a lot of research and facts, anecdotes. I mean, so you do a lot of research for your books. I wanted to understand also this bit.
Well, there's no routine because my days are very varied, because I write for the Times and on sport, in the Sunday Times on politics. And then I have some other things that I do in life, which are very important to me. So writing the books, I try and carve out weeks here and there. And then you're right, the key thing is to read the academic scientific papers, as many as possible, to see where the most interesting ideas are, and then to build a book around those ideas. So my next book actually will be on history.
Really?
How societies evolve, and why the Industrial Revolution happened in Western Europe, and how economic growth was developed from then until now, how innovation happens. So yes, I mean, I think that's a very interesting area right now. I think it's of great importance to understanding how to map our future. So I do enjoy writing books. I get a lot out of it.
That's interesting. I interview Yuval Noah Harari, and I mean, Homo Deus was a fantastic book, and he always has some good historical facts and good connections.
Yeah. I mean, he's a really good writer, and his books are very easy to read, and it's a good skill. I mean, the first one I thought was even better, Sapiens.
Yeah.
And yes, this next book will be in that space. It will be a different argument to his about human history, but it's a very rich topic, and as I say, I think it's of massive importance now, because in the world, obviously, there's a huge amount of change and uncertainty. We've got an American presidential election coming up, the rise of China, the relative decline economically of certain parts of Western Europe, and obviously the EU and Brexit and the tensions there. So I think it's a good time to be writing a book like this.
So Carmine, oh my gosh, you have a lot of fans I discover in the chat. You are my fav writer. Your rebel ideas is just epic. Here is Carmine. And I'm happy to see there are also some table tennis players, in the chat. Yeah.
Tell us, if there are any good table tennis, if there's anyone... By the way, the thing I was trying to think of earlier, what was the name of Costantini's doubles partner?
So was the mix or male? Bisi, Alessandro Bisi, Costantini.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember playing them at doubles a couple of times.
They were a good double. I mean, not top level, but I mean a good double. I mean, they played for a long time. You know that with Massimo Costantini, we interview Jürgen Persson. We did a live interview with Persson. Yeah.
How did he come across? Because Persson was one of the greatest players of all time. I mean, he was world champion, European champion. The amazing thing about Persson was his record in team events.
Yeah, incredible.
Incredible record in team events. I played him many, many times over the years, and what a great player. What's he doing now?
Well, now he's a coach. He was coach for the Swedish team. He got Peter Falk, I think, in semi-final in the World, or semi-final or final in the World Cup. It was like a crazy result. Peter Falk now play with pimples on the forehand. A strange player. I mean, it's not like Persson or Wagner or Appelgren. But yeah, he's a coach. And it's funny because you interview Jürgen and you say, Jürgen, I mean, you had this incredible backhand, and this crazy forehand. I mean, I think with defense players, he was really good. I don't think it was a big fun to play against him, because with his forehand, he was really a killer. And,
he was great. He was a great player against defense. I only beat him once.
Right.
That was also Olympic qualification. It's the best match I ever played in my life.
Wow.
But I got a very thin edge. This is in the days when table tennis was best of 5, up to 21. It's up to 11 now. So this was a classic length of match. And I think maybe 1919 in the 5th, or maybe 1918, I hit the ball and I thought it had missed. But it hit the edge of the table, but very thin. So the umpire didn't notice. I didn't notice. Persson noticed.
Oh, come on.
And he put his hand up. He said, the ball just touched the edge of the table. I said, I didn't hear it or see it. He said, no, I'm sure it's your point. And he was a very great sports person and a real great feel for the game.
Definitely. And I will soon have Timo Ball also. I mean, I'm just, when you stay passionate about the sport, you like the sport, and that's it. How was your transition from being a professional table tennis player to go into the business world? Because you have a lot of sportsmen that maybe they are great in the sport, but then they're not really good with, business, professional life, or they stay and they do coaching, or they cannot move to something else. How was your transition?
Well, I definitely wanted to move out of table tennis. And I think I mean, this is something that goes to, I think, most people now. In sport, you don't play one career for your life, because you get into your 30s as a footballer, you begin to slow down, the body can't keep up. So you have to transition from being a player to doing something else. And I think that this is going to be true for most people in life. At the moment, I'm a print journalist, is one of the things I do. Who knows if print journalism will exist in a decade from now? Probably not. So now, obviously, I am thinking, what else can I do? What will content look like in a decade from now? You begin to think creatively about where the trends are going, what kind of disruptions are coming down the line. And I think you need to prepare in advance so that you can take advantage of what is coming. And I think that in sport, too many young people are with coaches and in sports teams where they're like, just focus on sport, don't develop other skills. I think that's a great shame. You know, footballers, I think, can benefit a lot from continuing their education, from developing leadership skills, communication skills. This can all be done at the same time as a football career. You don't train football 18 hours a day. You do very short, sharp, high-quality training sessions. There are many opportunities to do other things. And I've said to football clubs, it's really a good idea to try and equip these young players with exit routes from the game. And I'd like to see that done a lot more.
Right. Yeah. Fundamental. By the way, you talking about developing skills. I was curious about your opinion about it. That is connected also about with your new book and how children should develop new skills. If I go back like 20 years and I think about sport, for instance, if I wanted to learn, I don't know, backhand topspin, all right, or topspin, or serve return, what I could do was, go to a tournament and try to watch some good players, or try to buy the VHS tape and try to see how, I don't know, Wagner was serving, but it was really tricky. Or you had to move, you had to go to China, or you had to go to Sweden to practice. Today, I can open YouTube and I can see, I don't know, everyone, everything explained, slow motion, high definition. Do you think that this is having an impact on the way people develop new skills, or maybe not, or maybe it's changing? I don't know. I was curious about your opinion.
I think it depends a lot on the skill. There are some skills where it really helps to have somebody explain it to you and show you. And the reason is there's a distinction between formal knowledge and tacit knowledge. Tacit knowledge is something that you have to do in order to learn. In other words, it can't be explained in a classroom. And those kinds of skills, I think a bit of coaching, a bit of physical interaction is very useful. There's nothing wrong, of course, with watching people do things well on tape. That's actually very helpful. That's a wonderful way to absorb what people are doing technically and so on. But I think there are some very intricate skills where, in addition to watching good players on video, it helps to watch them live. You get a slightly more granular picture of what they're doing, and then a bit of coaching as well. And there's some good evidence that innovation innovation has been helped a lot by the internet, because you connect with different people in different parts of the world, you learn ideas, but there are certain things where you need to learn with people, and that can really help. And there's a lot of new papers being written in this space.
Got it. And what about the language used with children to help them develop new skills? I was wondering, when you wrote this book, you were trying to change your language, try to speak more childish, like when you are a father and say, did you read this? You know what it is? Or you just keep your language and just the examples are different. How do you find the right balance?
Yeah, so I think it's a really bad idea, for the non-fiction I write, to be didactic, to be too, you must do this. Tell the stories, let them absorb what they want to absorb, and then take ownership of what they want to do. I think that's the best way to drive change. And when it comes to how do you get kids in a position to be comfortable with change, I mean, one of the things that I think in our education system, we tend to teach young people, they absorb knowledge, and then they're often examined on reproducing or regurgitating the knowledge. So, like chemical formulae, they have to write down these things, and there's a right or a wrong answer, and they get a tick if it's right and a cross if it's wrong. But of course, in the world, they obviously need to learn information, concepts, knowledge. That's very helpful. But the real skill in the world today is finding new knowledge, finding how to do things better. And that means trying something new, finding out how it went, learning the lessons, and adapting. That you need resilience, you need curiosity, you need the ability to perform experiments, to test hypotheses. All of these things are softer skills that are massive. I mean, think about any advance in technology. It requires thinking about a new technology. How can we do something better? Or any new business is about doing things better or differently to the existing way of doing things in some sense. So that capacity, you might call it being entrepreneurial, being able to try, having initiative. You talked about transitioning out of table tennis. That requires initiative. You can't just allow a coach to do it for you. I mean, unless you're very lucky to have somebody with good connections who will basically take you where you need to go. You need to create opportunities for yourself. And that, I think, is, so Dare to Be You is all about this, and to make young people feel comfortable with this. In a classroom, it's so often sitting down and listening and then writing down what you've listened to. And I think we want to make children more active in how they learn and how they absorb information, how they learn new information, and how they think about the world. The world is changeable. We interact with the world. I mean, think of what our species has accomplished. We're talking on this amazing technology, wireless connections, a great interface, software, a global infrastructure, facilitating communication. Every leap that takes us forward has required somebody to think differently and to take a risk. All businesses are a risk. And I think children today are more risk averse. They don't like taking risks because their parents are so worried about them failing.
Absolutely.
We need people to try and to fail. All successful people fail a lot. It's just that they know how to fail and to learn as quickly as possible.
Going back to table tennis, I cannot not talk about table tennis with you, Matthew. That is stronger than me. About failure, have you seen the table tennis documentary about Sweden, where you see Wallner and Lind, you remember Eric Lind and the person, going to China, and they were keep losing and losing. They lost so many times, more than even I remember. I didn't know that. And then they won the World Championship. But they lost so many times. They were really failing badly for so many years. So failure is part of the trajectory. Yeah.
I mean, obviously in sport people fail because when you start playing, you're young and you're learning how to do things, and obviously there are older players who are going to be better. So learning how to fail is the reason I'm looking over here. There's somebody just walked into my garden, and I'm trying to work, but they're sort of standing in the garden, not doing anything, and it's not entirely clear. Anyway,
you want to check, double check?
Yeah, it's a strange one in the front garden. But if you think about technology, you have to fail when you create a new technology. No new technology is perfect the first time you come up with the idea. You have to put the prototype into the market, perhaps get feedback, you improve it. So being able to be adaptive and open about the information that's telling you where you're currently going wrong is how we get better through time. And I think that is something that I think we often miss that today, because young people are surrounded by a social media where people are posting pictures that look wonderful about their lives and about what they've achieved. They don't post the failures. And if kids think that people are successful instantly and that they try something new and they're not successful instantly, because that's impossible. They give up too quickly. And I think that's the danger.
To better understand the word, I see the chat is curious about your media diet. What are your source of information? Where do you get your reports, research, news, just some names or something that for you is important?
So I read a lot of books. Okay. I read a lot of books, and often from academics. And then the papers, the academic papers. When it comes to keeping track of world affairs, politics, then I watch the telly and read the Times and the Sunday Times newspapers. I try and read some of the American press. Obviously, the global news pages of most newspapers gives you a sense of what's happening around the world. So I think that's a good question. I think it is good to get good sources of information. So I keep track of as much as I can. But when I find book reading very helpful, because then you get very deep into a topic.
What kind of books? I mean, just non-fiction or?
Yeah. So I read. So at the moment, I'm researching on history, and there's a particular area of history that is important to me, anthropological part of history. So I'm reading great books by Joe Henrich at Harvard, Francis Fukuyama at Stanford, Neil Ferguson, who is now at the Hoover Institute. I've read a number of different books on anthropology from Jack Goody, who's an Oxford anthropologist, Michael Mitterauer, who's a German historian, made a big impact on me. So yes, I keep up. I try and read as much as I possibly can.
Got it. I just want to close this quick chat with you, Matthew, with your opinion about a couple of things that come up in my mind. The first one is this UK situation, since I live in Brighton now for 8 years. I was curious to understand what's your opinion about it. I mean, if we meet in 12 months, what do you think is going to happen? Are we going in a second lockdown? This Brexit will be, I don't know, a disaster or not? What's the picture to help me to understand and kids to understand what's going on in the next 12 months?
Well, I think the two big issues that the United Kingdom confront at the moment, you're absolutely right. One is the pandemic. So this virus, SARS-CoV-2, which has been with us for a few months now. And then the other is Brexit. So these are two very big. One is obviously a health issue that has big implications. The other, more of a political issue. My hope and my expectation is that there will be a vaccine available next year in the first 6 months. And I think that if that works and it confers immunity, then it's possible we'll be able to get back to some kind of normality. The big question is what we do over the next few months. Because obviously the Prime Minister is giving a statement this evening. He's talking in Parliament. He started 10 minutes ago to explain the next steps. There are slight differences around the world in how countries are dealing with this. As you know, South Korea, Singapore, Taiwan, Israel, Sweden. There are different approaches. We're learning all the time. So I think the vaccine is the way out, and I think we will get one. I think the early results have been good in the early stages of the clinical trials. I think this is a positive and a good way. I mean, I talk about this in Rebel Ideas. A good way to make sense of what might be happening is to look at what experts are saying and to look at the average of their expectation. It's called the wisdom of crowds. And there is now a growing expectation that a workable vaccine that confers immunity for some period of time will be available. Brexit, I think, is very uncertain right now. I mean, I don't want to bore the audience.
No, it's interesting.
The technical details are quite interesting. The question is whether we leave with a deal, with a trade deal, or without one. And we're in the final stages of a negotiation that will end in a very short period of time. And I just think that whatever happens, the British have to be resilient and have to look to the positives. I was against Brexit. I wish we had stayed in the European Union, but we have voted to leave and we have to make the best of it.
Final curiosity that I have is about sport, but also about aging in sport. I started to get fascinated about this Mike Tyson match. He's back and is fighting, and so I watched an interview with Joe Rogan, and I realized that he started to practice with these new technologies and a lot of machines, and now he's in great shape. So I thought, well, maybe I could come back, for for some table tennis, or we could come back, and maybe we could be in a shape that is similar to our shape when we were 30, So I was curious about your opinion about the sport evolution, and obviously if Mike Tyson gonna win or not, because this is my first career.
So I think it's great to carry on playing sport when you're older, because there's no risk to health. It improves health. Boxing is a bit different, because if you go into the ring and you're old and someone hits you hard, then you can get really serious damage. Yeah. So I worry a lot about people boxing, particularly against younger people. I think that's dangerous. I think it's an open question how good you can be later in life. If there are new technologies and techniques, it's possible people will be able to extend their sporting careers with new technology. Tennis, for example, I think the best three players, Federer, Djokovic, and Nadal are all in their 30s. 20 years ago, all the best players are in their 20s. But when it comes to non-sport, so sport is obviously about the interface between brain and body. Perception, how you move your racket to create good timing, but muscularity is important, and a whole range of variables to do with the central nervous system. When it comes to learning new skills, conceptual knowledge, I think there's no limit on age. Then you can really continue to learn and build new knowledge and continue to reinvent. And I think that if there's any older people listening here, the sky's the limit as you get older. I'm 49 now, and I'm really looking forward to the next 20 years. I'm very optimistic and hopeful.
Fantastic. Matthew, thank you so much. Dare to be you. I kindly recommend to everyone listening, if you have children, and I didn't notice that there is a table tennis racket in a page of the book with a ball. Finally, fantastic touch. Matthew, keep in touch, and good luck for everything.
Thank you, Monty, and thanks everyone for listening. It's been great to be with you.
Bye.